Hey everyone, this is Brian back with another episode. In this episode, we are going to speak about what are some resourceful websites, research tactic that you can use in order to become a better developer, and where you should spend most of your time if you're trying to find a solution about something um, that that would be very helpful for you. Or you can, post your problem in order to find solution to something, right? Um, Again, these are all for new developers who are not familiar with a lot of things around the whole development environment. But I personally think that this information are very useful for every developer to know, and where to go and where to do a research in order to find a solution for something. And no, it's not only Stack Overflow. There's so much more to it. That even sometimes that you have a problem, but you won't see it on Stack Overflow, which is everyone's favorite place, I guess, all developers. Copy and paste. Don't do that, or do that, but make sure that you understand the code first. That's the most important thing. So with that say, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos on my channel. You guys' support mean everything to me. So with that say, let's go ahead and show you guys around how I do my research in regard to things. All right, so first thing first, the first place that you would probably be familiar with is Google. Just Google it, right? So let's say, in this case, I have a problem where, I don't know, let me come up with a problem. So many problems. All right, let's say let's say one other developer say, hey man, how can you add an attribute to an input, right? So that's literally what you search: how to add attribute to input. As you can see in that Google suggestion, you see a bunch of other ones, other suggestion. But in this case, we're talking mostly about HTML input, web development. Of course, if there are other development such as like iOS, then you want to kind of like how to add attribute to input in Swift, in Xcode, right? That's what you want to search for. But in this case, we're just going to make it so simple, and we're just going to talk about HTML. So how to add attribute to input in HTML. There you go. So first thing first, you see w3schools.com, which is the lead resource for information about web development and some other development as well. But let's click on that, right? So once you click on it, it's a HTML input attribute, right? And simple as that, like attribute for attribute, name, value, and of course this is input value. So like we were searching for input. So like if it's input, here's the value, and the value is John. So as if you can see, if you try it yourself, there you go. John is input, is in the attribute value, which had the properties of John. So very simple. That's how you usually, when something needs to be added to some like HTML page, that's how you look for things, Let's go back. Always Google it first. No matter what, Google it first. That's your best friend. Let's say you Google it and you didn't find your information. My favorite second place, it would either be Mozilla, website in regard to web development, or I could just go straight and look for the link, which is say Stack Overflow, right? Which is this right here. So like a Stack Overflow, and if you click on it, it will say I want to use JavaScript to insert attribute to elements, right? This is a little bit tricky because now it's like getting to a point where you're saying, I'm using JavaScript to add an attribute to an element, right? So this one would probably not solve our problem, because again, attributes are just plain simple, and you can just type it into your HTML. Let me see. We could also add like to the search Stack Overflow in Google, how to add HTML to input value attribute, right? So yeah. So there you go. What is this attribute? Okay, I have an HTML whole value attribute. I want to idealize the text. So right, they want to idealize the text within the value, right? So okay, this is again more complicated. So Stack Overflow is another one, but again, that's a second option. But Google usually have the best answer for everything in development field. Now, if let's go a little bit more complex and more something much tougher. This is all related to the type of developer you are. Again, every developer is different. So you kind of have to like see what you're searching in regard to what framework, what, what environment, what technology are being used. So again, it's all like personal, right? It's like we have so many different type of developer, and every developer is different. So let's say in this case, I want to say change the color of iOS input, right? And if you're an app developer, kind of like me, I do app development and web development. So you could just search in like change. In iOS, they call it text field. So change text field color, whether you're using Swift or Objective-C. I personally use Swift. So you would say change the text field color in Swift. So as you can see, Google doesn't have that complex and tough answers, right? So where you would usually rely on this type of question that comes in your mind is Stack Overflow. That's the best place, and we're gonna get to that why. Well, as you can see in this, someone asked, hey, change a custom text field, background color, and text color iOS, right? And then this is the answer. So like you have a bunch of answer, and then you can also if you see a check mark in a Stack Overflow, it's basically saying the person that asked that question confirmed it, right? And say like this works for me, right? Then in the bottom, you will see other answers who answer in regard to that, and really like that's how you do most of your research. But just don't copy and paste whatever you see in a Stack Overflow, because I personally had an experience in the beginning of my development where, and it's not a good practice, that doesn't make you a good developer. You need to understand what actually that code is doing, right? What is it? Why is it behaving this way? Where is it going in order to like execute, like changing the color of a text field? If you understand that, then yes, of course you can copy and paste it. But if you understand that, you can understand other things, and your development skills will rise much faster. So it's kind of like you understand one thing and then 10 other doors open to you, right? So like you can choose which ways you want to execute your code. So going back here, again, in this episode, we're just talking about how to think about finding a solution for a problem, right? We're not really solving any problem in this episode. So there you go. That's how you found problem. That's how you found solution to a problem, right? Another way that I personally take as a third suggestion that I would do, I would search in Stack Overflow, right? So I would go here and say change text field in Swift. Of course, the human verification, just because I'm an alien, so, you know. Change text field background color. All right, so you would see a bunch of questions, a bunch of answer. You of course you have the option to go based on relevance or newest, you know, or active or highest score. Let's see. How can we answer it? Change text field background color in Swift. So I would just, you know, search things and see which one matched the best. On background color of text field in search one. So something like that is good, you know. Yeah. So this person wanna change the background of this search field, text field. So, you know, someone answered right here. Again, it tells you what happening. First way, how to use it, the Swift, the objective, right? So definitely try to understand the correct answer once the ones that are checked. So again, no one checked on here. So rely on the most upvote answer. So again, this one is like, you know, it has 2 upvotes. Of course, it's not a lot, but it gives you a better description of how the person is doing. And the person that like write the most about detail, that's the answer that you usually want to take and understand, because, you know, the person actually put effort in order to give back to the community, and they actually want to help others. And you should also help others too. So like, you know, I do. I'm actually one of the developers that do contribute to StackOverflow. This is my account. So, you know, I ask question, I answer question. This is where you want to play around a lot in order to like get your, you know, skill up and going. Another place in the StackOverflow. So StackOverflow has a lot of places where you can search information, right? And if you're trying to get it quickly, but you don't want to like ask question and create a question, a post, don't create post a question on the StackOverflow until you absolutely cannot find information, because people are just a-hole, man. Like sometimes they would just bash at you and say like, look, I understand this because we're not trying to make the community more like, you know, filled with bunch of duplicated question, but and you do get flagged for duplication sometimes, but some people on the Stack Overflow think that everyone on the Stack Overflow think that like they're the god, like developer, right? Which is not the case. Everyone has a different knowledge in development, and to really understand that, you should there is a study about this. Let me actually get back to it. It's called Imposter Syndrome in Developers. So do search about this, and let me tell you something. This is one thing that I struggle with in the beginning of my career. There is imposter syndrome in developers, right? Everyone think, oh, that person knows better, that person knows this. No, man, that's not how it works. Every developer have their own limit of knowledge, right? I know another person, you might be right, I might be wrong, I might be wrong, I might be right, you might be wrong, right? That's how it works. So don't ever put yourself down. You'll always have a knowledge that someone else doesn't have. Again, going back, so to this subject. So yeah, you can post answers, you can post question and ask people. Please make sure that when you when you post a question, is in detail, right? Don't just go ahead and write things, right? And say, hey, how do you fix this? No, say, what have you done? Why is it not resolving? And then post about it, right? You know, and then someone that you would get a better answer, right? Because now you have like a validated point that you done this stuff and it didn't work. So yeah, so that's a Stack Overflow. And another option within a Stack Overflow, it's the chat room, right? This is where you get like your answer. You do get your answer like quickly within the Stack Overflow question post, but there's also another option, which is the chat. So you can click on chat, and then you can see what the chat related to. If it's Swift, then you can just, search for Swift chat room. That would be iOS development, and then you can, you can start like, you can start typing your question, and then somebody would answer you. Again, this chat room doesn't have a lot of active users, just because iOS is very tough programming language, and there is not a huge community for it. But the other ones, such as like PHP, JavaScript should be one, and JavaScript, they are very active, so like you can always ask question there. Okay, so this is another way. So if you exhaust on Google search and you didn't find anything on Google search, then you exhaust on all the Stack Overflow option, which is like search question, post question, asking the chat room of the question. Then you done everything and you couldn't find even in Google search. Then you have to look more into where other researchable information in regard to the technology, the programming language, or anything in that matter, right? So the other place are usually looking at that documentation of the place that you of the place of the technology of your choice, right? Like what you're working on. And those are usually, let's say, for example, we're talking about Bootstrap grid, right? Google would always usually answer your questions, by the way. But like Bootstrap grid layout. So like you would just, and in this case, we're just saying, hey, how can I have an end column and a first column and a start column, right? So let's say that's your question and you exhaust on everything on Google and Stack Overflow and you're trying to find your answer. Where would you go? So you would just, try to think about like a hierarchy, like mentality of things in programming. So like, if I can find this specific detail, what is it close to that, right? So you would just say, okay, grid system, Bootstrap. Now, again, they got some demo here. This is the normal grid system. Grid option here. This is an equal width grid system. So like, search into documentation. So like now you got the variant byte content, echo response, okay, blah, blah, blah. We kind of know, so there you go. So this is where a horizontal alignment. So we kind of want our grid to look like one at the start and one at the end. So we would go down and see how we did it. Voila, that's how you do it. So again, always understand the code before you use it in your production or in development environment. So yeah, so again, in this case, we need a container of Bootstrap. Then we need to justify the content between. Then we need to include the content, which is column 4. So yeah, that's another way. Documentation, right? It's the best way to find. I know a lot of people would say, no, documentation is best. Google documentation should be first and then Google. Honestly, just because the frameworks and technologies update so fast, Google always have the latest information for you. That's why I personally rely on Google first, then then other places. But sometimes these developers, they don't update their documentation as they make the change in their frameworks, right? Or in their technology. So Google, the best place. So yeah, so that's where I would go. And then if that didn't work, then another option where we have is, it's the developers field, is where the developers work on this project or on this technology, and that's where this is the breadth of the technology, right? This is where they are, and if if all that exhausts, I hope you're not in that situation, because sometimes it takes like weeks in order to find an answer to something. But if you get to that point, then now you have to look more deep into it. Like researching is all about looking deeper and see where things are coming from, right? Now going back, so let's say Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap, it's a framework, it's technology that a lot of people use for front-end development. You would just search in Bootstrap, and then you would usually type in GitHub, because developers are mostly on GitHub or GitLab or Bootstrap repo, right? And repo is basically a repository, or you can complete Bootstrap repository, right? Then you would go to, for example, the first repo that came up. So you would click on this repo, and then you see the repo of Bootstrap on GitHub. Then what you do here, you go look into issues. In GitHub, there are open issues, there are closed issues. As you can see, there are a bunch of people who asked questions about Bootstrap and got answer and they closed, right? Or it was not relevant enough in order to answer, right? But that's another good source in order to find information in regard to a problem that you have. And let me tell you, GitHub has huge community in this regard, right? Honestly, sometimes when I know a technology, it won't be searchable in Google, I would just go straight to GitHub. But again, it's all about your style of development, how you find information. But again, it's so important. It's so important that you first understand the code and what's going on before you copy and paste something. That would avoid vulnerability within a code. That would avoid spending too much time in order to develop something, to find a solution to a problem. It will really save you time. Try to understand. Now, there you go. That's another way to find information. If all that exhausts, if now you don't have any other option to find the solution to your problem, I personally recommend that you go even deeper than GitHub. Go into the system of where the files and the folder it's being installed, right? Look at a function. Let's say if it's a text field function, look at that function or text method or class or anything. Look into those code within your local environment and see, why is it behaving this way? Why did something happen? Did an update happen? And did that change any information in this method or in this class, right? So that's like, oh my gosh, that's like, if you don't find any any solution by that time, then I'm sorry, you are kind of exhausted at that point, and you kind of have to just take back, chill, and start asking your friends or other developers within a Stack Overflow. But that's the worst case scenario, guys, right? Or you probably would end up creating your own hacking around things, finding solution. That you find a solution by making it up by yourself from different technology and execute different code base, and you can even commit to the Git repository and say, hey guys, I solved this. Hey, can we adjust this in the code in the repository? So that's the bottom line. That's how a lot of developers do their research. And the most helpful information that I can give to someone as a developer, it's actually how you research, and that's how you become a good developer. You can go to college and you can study as much as you want, but if you don't know how to research about a problem, you will not be a good developer, period. So with that said, guys, I hope this video found it useful for new developers and how to find information about problem. Please subscribe, share, and like my videos and my channel, and comment if you guys want me to make videos about anything that you guys want to learn and my experience or other things. With that said, I finally shoot a video in morning just because it's Saturday and I don't work right now. So yeah, have a good one. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.